So guys, we're going to talk a little bit of sport, which is unusual for me because I'm a pasty white guy. Don't play much sport. Tend to play a lot of gaming instead. But regardless, we're going to talk about sport and we're going to talk about football. And you're probably wondering, why are we going to be talking about football? Well, if you see the screen, you probably have some indication of where this is going, especially if you're an Australian. So, in Australia, we have several sports that we like to play. Football, basketball, netball, soccer, apparently. But at the end of the day, there's one person in particular lately that's had a lot of spotlight shine on him. Now, his name, I'm going to try and pronounce this, and I apologise to the football fans if I get this wrong, but his name is Folau. Now, or Izzy, as he's called with his friends. Now, he's a Wallabies player. He's played for Australia. He's Aboriginal descent. And he's a Christian. And Izzy made the unfortunate mistake of tempting the outrage mob a little too well. He put up a tweet. It was a few months ago now. But he wrote, warning, it was like a meme that he posted sort of thing, or an image he posted, saying, warning, drunks, homo something or rather, adulterers, liars, fornicators, thieves, atheists, idlers, hell awaits you, repent, only Jesus saves. Now, obviously, this is in line with his Christian belief. Me, personally, I'm not a Christian. I like to believe there is a God and a hell because, well, Hillary Clinton has to go somewhere when she dies, and hopefully it's downstairs. So at the end of the day, I'm kind of hoping there is a hell. But obviously, look, when I first heard about this, I thought, it's a football star, who really cares? Well, it's taken quite an interesting turn of events. So we're going to start from the start. We're going to tell you this whole story. And then at the end of it, you can go through and basically make your own judgment. My major interest in this is because of the fact that it's more of a freedom of speech thing. At the end of the day, I think he should have the right to say whatever he wants. I don't necessarily agree with it, but hey, it's his right to say. So, what obviously with this happening and everything like that, there's been a bit of a outfall, so to speak, a bit of a downtrodden, a little bit of a complicated situation where Australian Rugby, now obviously he has a contract with Australian Rugby. He had nothing in his contract saying that he was not allowed to voice his Christian opinions, because obviously that would go against the whole freedom of religion thing. But what they tried to do was they tried to bring in another contract after he spoke this. He wrote this on Instagram, I believe it was, and tried to make it so that he was stopped from allowing to his own personal opinion regarding religion or political views or whatever it may be. He refused to sign the new and improved contract, and they then tore up his old one, and he has lost his job. He's no longer playing football. And he is now taking them to court. That is the skinny version of the first couple of months of this situation. Now look, at the end of the day, I'm against Australian football for what they've done. I think it's disgusting. You can't go through later and cancel someone's contract because you have a problem with something they've said after the fact. They literally cancelled the contract because he wouldn't sign the new one, where he was forbidding himself from expressing these opinions, and they obviously didn't want him to keep going. It was sort of a bit of a barter, whatever it may be. I think it was more of a bargaining tool. Look, if you don't sign this new contract, we're going to fire you, blah, blah, blah. He called their bluff. Well, it wasn't a bluff, they actually did it. So they fired him, and he no longer now works as a football star. And my alarm is going off, so I apologise for that. So obviously, at the end of the day, to combat this, he's gone through and he's set up a GoFundMe account. He's set up a $3 million legal GoFundMe account because he's trying to challenge them in court. Obviously, he wants his contract back. He wants his money back at least. And obviously, presumably, he wants to play football. So, former Wallaby star Ethe Folau is trying to raise $3 million to cover legal costs in his ongoing fight with Rugby Australia. Rugby Australia and a former Wallaby star, Drew Mitchell, have slammed Ethe Folau for trying to raise $3 million to pay upcoming legal battles in what could be a landmark test of freedom of religion, or religious freedoms. The committed Christian had his $4 million Rugby Australia contract terminated in May after a post made on social media citing the Bible was deemed homophobic to follow the similar incident last year. A GoFundMe page set up earlier this week to raise legal funds for legal costs in his bid for reinstatement, since he's raised more than $377,000, actually went up to $600,000, with over 4,500 people donating to the cause. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the point? Why are we talking about this? Well, Ethe Folau's GoFundMe page was shut down. Yeah, GoFundMe pulled the pin on it. So Ethe Folau's controversial appeal for financial assistance for his legal fight against Rugby Australia has been shut down by GoFundMe Australia with more than $760,000. That's how much he raised, by the way, in funds donating to the ex-rugby star expected to be refunded, which they were. GoFundMe Australia released a statement to the Sunday Morning Herald on Monday saying that Folau's appeal breached the organisation's terms and conditions. Today we'll be closing Ethe Folau's campaign and issuing full refunds to all donors. After a routine period of evaluation, we have concluded that his campaign violates our terms of service, GoFundMe Australia Regional Manager Nicola Barrett said. As a company, we're absolutely committed to fight for equality, except for obviously if you have a different opinion, for the LGBTQ plus people and fostering an environment of inclusivity, meaning they're pushing the social justice warrior narrative. But regardless, while we welcome GoFundMe's engagement in diverse civil debate, we do not tolerate the promotion of discrimination or exclusion. Now, at the end of the day, GoFundMe copped a lot of flack over this. People were very upset with GoFundMe because they're literally going through and saying, hey, we're all for inclusion, we're all for equality. But at the end of the day, when it came to Ethe Folau, well, he has a different opinion. And we'll get to some of the more stickier points later. But obviously, Australian Christian Lobby has come to the aid. And the Australian Christian Lobby's new fundraising page is flying after GoFundMe campaign was next. So less than 24 hours after his campaign was punted by GoFundMe. Don't understand why it was punted, but you mean cancelled. Ethe Folau's new donation page has incredibly soared past 7 figures. The Australian Christian Lobby's new fundraising page for Ethe Folau has drawn an incredible response. The new page on the ACL's website was created overnight and sped past the $1 million mark by 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, as Australians donated in stunning fashion. It's the good old adage where, at the end of the day, it's the Barbra Streisand effect, really, quite literally. The figure doesn't include a $100,000 pledge from the ACLU, which is also on top, to Folau's legal efforts, meaning he's already passed the donations made to his original GoFundMe page, which has reached upwards of $750,000 over 4 days before it was shut down on Monday inside 13 hours. The group's managing director, Mara Illis, tweeted a link to the new page early Tuesday morning, saying that he had spoken to the Australian rugby player and we fixed it. On behalf of the Australian Christian Lobby, I've spoken to Ethe Folau to let him know that the ACL will be donating $100,000 to his legal defence because it's right and it's important legal precedent, he wrote. I've also offered to host his online appeal for funds here on our website, and he has accepted our offer. So please give generously today to help Ethe Folau stand for your religious freedoms. By the way, link will be in the description below if you feel like donating. Just putting that out there because, you know, screw GoFundMe. Now, we do have this video and we will play this for you now. And while that's doing, I will go and set off my alarm. So,
Israel Folau is facing growing backlash over his appeal for donations to help fund a legal battle following the termination of his $4 million contract with Rugby Australia. Since Friday, he has raised around $750,000. The Australian Christian Lobby's Managing Director, Martin Isles, joins us now from Sydney. Martin, good morning to you. Do you support Israel Folau's decision to crowdfund to meet his legal fees?
Yeah, I think I do, absolutely. I mean, the ACL's on the record saying that it's something that we support, and we support it because of what it's been able to do. We support it because it's been able to give people a voice. There's a lot of people who were contacting us and asking for an opportunity to, in a tangible way, support Israel and be a part of that movement, and he's given them the platform to do that. And
where will the money be going?
Well, the money's going straight into trust, so it can't be used for anything other than defraying his legal expenses. There's been a lot of conjecture and talk in the media recently about the clause that's on the homepage. I'm told that was put there because there was a strict legal requirement in order to be compliant with the disparate range of legislation around the country, but it is going straight into trust. It can only be used to defray the legal expenses. So people can rest easy about that. And I think that the amount of money that's come into that fund over the last few days shows that there's a whole lot of Australians who resonate with his cause. They feel like Israel's case is their case. And I think that requires some attention from politicians, from those of us who are talking about this in the public square, because it means that Australians feel as if the pinch of political correctness, the way in which they feel like they can't express their beliefs openly and freely using their just ordinary Australian voice, it means that that's something they feel the burden of, and they want to get behind Israel, and we're looking to see you know, what that movement creates.
Do you think...
and just on that, I would totally agree with. I think the fact that they have raised so much money over this situation has just shown how much Australia actually hates this whole social justice warrior narrative, this whole shutting down freedom of speech and everything like that. Australians have had a gutful of it. So I'm really proud of the Aussies for actually standing up for this.
Though it's a Christian endeavour to crowdfund, I mean, at a time when plenty of...
Is this woman for real? When you go to church, do they not pass around a donation plate? Is that not a form of crowdfunding? Like, are you stupid, woman? Did you think of this question before you asked?
Church-based appeals are underway to help the homeless, to help the downtrodden. This sits comfortably with you. I mean,
yeah, because at the end of the day, if they give to Israel Folau's case, they might necessarily give to, you know, these other poor innocent people. In other words, what she's saying here is, we don't think that this is worth it because we're against this opinion. So he's a bigot. So what about all these other poor people? People can donate the money to wherever they want.
Could fund this legal...
He actually says that.
Battle himself, couldn't he?
Oh, look, sure. I mean, it doesn't work that way in the sense that people look at causes that they resonate with and things come along their way, and some people say, well, this is something that's really important to me, and they'll put money into it, and that could be, you know, a sick child, that could be a charity that exists, that could be Israel Folau's cause. I don't think it's one or the other. Australians tend to give to as many things as they think are important, and they do think that this is important because this actually goes to the heart of their freedoms. I think Israel Folau's case is our case. It's not just my case as a Christian, but it's our case as Australians who enjoy that freedom where we can express our identity, we can speak openly and freely about our beliefs, and it doesn't mean we're going to lose our job, it doesn't mean we're going to lose our professional accreditation, it doesn't mean we're going to get kicked out of some institution. It means that we can live free and open lives. And I think people feel like his freedom is their freedom, and therefore it's worth investing in. This is their life, this is their country.
Clearly not all Christians agree with you. At least one Anglican bishop has branded Folau's religious statements as hate speech. That's the Right Reverend Murray Harvey.
Oh my God, we found one guy that agrees with us. Call the troops!
Do you accept that comments suggesting that homosexuals, among others, should go to hell leave some individuals feeling very unsafe, maybe even undervalued?
I think it's unusual for a Christian minister or bishop to come out and say that the Bible's hate speech, because Israel Folau shared something from Scripture And look, I think that that's an unfair characterisation of what he said. I mean, what he posted there was a list of things. Everyone's highlighted on the word homosexuals. That list included me. It included us all. And that's fundamental Christian teaching. That's very basic to Christian belief. It's been that way for 2 millennia, and it's not going to change in the sense that all people will be judged at the end of their life and all people will be found wanting. Hell is real. Salvation in Jesus Christ is real. This is the bread and butter of the Christian faith. And I think if we want to have a discussion about that and argue the validity of those ideas, we should, without abusing people and saying hate speech, homophobes, things like this. This is exactly the reason we have a class of Australians, and it's a big group of people. I talk to these people all the time who feel as though just because of who they are, just because of what they believe, they're being called haters, they're being called bigots, they're being called all these things. And these are lovely people. I mean, I know Israel well enough now that I know that he's a nice and gentle guy. I was at a dinner and he heard that some girls were being bullied at school for their faith, and he disappeared into the corner straight away, and he filmed a selfie video of support, letting them know that he was praying for them and things like that. He's a guy who instinctively cares, and I think to have a shallow characterisation of beliefs like that is not helpful, and that's not what we should be modelling. And I think that these people who have joined Israel Folau's cause, and the many thousands of Australians who feel the pinch of political correctness, are looking for people to show leadership on this, and I think politicians should take notice as well.
Equally, of course, there's a huge swathe of the population who have been very hurt and offended by the comments. We are out of...
It's not a huge population, okay? The huge population has been hurt by this. Like the total amount of people that in Australia that are homosexuals is minimal, okay? So you're going to get people that are offended on behalf of the homosexuals, but at the end of the day, going by that list, and like the Reverend said, there were many people that were on that list. Adulterers, atheists, homosexuals. There was a stack of people. Hell, I don't necessarily believe in God. I'm agnostic. I'm not an atheist, but according to Ethe Folau, I would be. I would be going to hell as well. Am I offended by what he said? No, because it's his view. It's not mine. Like I said, I hope there's a heaven. I hope there's a hell, because, well, Hillary Clinton has to go down and burn somewhere. But at the end of the day, yeah, I'm not offended by his view, and that's the problem. That's the issue that a lot of this mainstream media is not getting.
Time, we'll have to leave it there for now, but we appreciate your time this morning.
And
Martin,
I do want to admit that this guy did an amazing job on that interview. Full props to him for that.
A crowdfunding initiative launched by Israel Folau and the Australian Christian Lobby has now raised more than $1.5 million. The former rugby star has asked the public for help funding his legal fees after his sacking in May. The new fund will allow for those who want to continue to show their support to the sacked rugby star. The page replaces Folau's GoFundMe page, which was taken down for being in violation of the website's terms of services.
So that was obviously a very short clip, giving you an idea of some of the things. And
there's been plenty of talk from the media about freedom of speech lately, especially when it comes to classified leaks and government raids.
By the way, we will be talking about that.
And that's, of course,
in another video.
Fair enough. We've discussed
maybe not today.
This at length here many times. But where is the media on Israel Folau's freedom of expression and freedom of religion? In many ways, this is a much more complex issue. Folau has lost his job, his multi-million-dollar contract, and the support of much of the population because he shared his religious beliefs about homosexuals, atheists, adulterers, fornicators, and others he calls sinners going to hell unless they repent. Now, Folau's GoFundMe page to raise money for a legal challenge against all this treatment has been shut down. The company has responded to public criticism, referred to its own conditions and its absolute commitment to the fight for equality for LGBTIQ+ people and fostering an
Meanwhile, they're not going to fight for the equality of everybody else.
Environment of inclusivity. And it dumped the page, refunding more than $700,000 to people who had donated. In effect, they've said to Folau and anyone else whose views they disagree with, go fund yourself. But let's see if there is any media hypocrisy at play here.
Oh boy, there is.
Let's have a look at some sports commentators leading the charge against Folau yesterday.
This is a segment that I just want to say. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations have made its way into Israel Folau's GoFundMe account. This morning, it had tipped over just over $600,000. Fitzy, ready, set, go.
I'm the same as you. I'm just exhausted by the whole thing. But I'll just say this. Look, I think people say, Australia was divided, and I think there was some truth in that Folau probably had 30% support. I think after this GoFundMe, most of Australia went, what? Seriously? That's not what GoFundMe is for. GoFundMe is for worthy causes where the people need money and they can't support it. So they approach the community and they say, listen, I've got nothing in my pockets, I've got a tumour, can you help me? And people go, well, that's a really good thing to do. So they do it.
That I totally disagree with. At the end of the day, the GoFundMe their page is, if you want to support it, you do. If you think it is a worthy donation, or something that you want to throw a couple of bucks in, to quote an Aussie saying, then you do. It's up to you to decide whether you think this page is something that you are interested in or not. Now, at the end of the day, the success of the page is obviously relying on two things. One, your ability to market it, and two, obviously people thinking it's a worthy cause. Obviously, Ethe Folau has obviously got the first one down pat. He's got a name, he's got a following, everybody knows him, that's great. Second thing, obviously, is people think it's a worthy cause. He had over $600,000 in donations in like 3 days. To me, that makes people say, maybe this is a worthy cause. Well, I don't necessarily agree with what Israel Folau has said. But that said, I will defend his right to say it. And that is the point that people need to look into. That at the end of the day, you mightn't necessarily agree with him, but you defend his right to say it.
That's what GoFundMe is for.
So, former Wallaby Peter FitzSimons sets the standard on what is appropriate for a GoFundMe campaign.
That I have a problem with. We're now turning to celebrities to let us know what is acceptable for a GoFundMe page.
Causes, it seems, political issues or legal cases for those with means. Presumably, that would rule out the campaign launched last year to fund defamation action by Green Senator Sarah Hansen-Young against fellow Senator David Leyonhjelm.
Now, just on this, Sarah Hansen-Young is an Australian politician who receives a very tidy lump sum because of her political standing. Israel Folau lost his contract with Australian Rugby. Now, we're not sure how much of that money he received, how much he had to refund or whatever. It was originally worth $4 million, but it was over several years. I doubt he got all that $4 million, and I presume he has lost a good chunk of that funding. Sarah Young didn't lose her job. Sarah Young still has her job even to this day, even though moving along as that disappointing as that is. She's a Green senator. She's a far left progressive. So you get the idea of my feelings about this. But anyway, she amazingly still has her job. So her doing a GoFundMe while she keeps her job, I find in bad taste. Izzy, he lost his job. He lost his contract. He lost presumably most of his money. That's where I'm like, okay, maybe he does need some help funding this defamation case, or this challenging this Rugby Australia in court. I'm more likely to accept helping him than I am Sarah Young.
No. FitzSimons seemed to be on the other side of that debate. Despite Hansen-Young's $200,000 plus salary, her perks and her political pulpit, FitzSimons didn't condemn that GoFundMe campaign. In fact, he wrote approvingly of it.
Now, look, at the end of the day, she receives $200,000 a year. Izzy lost his job. You let me know in the comment section what you think is a more interesting
In the Sydney Morning Herald, he said a crowdfunding account had been set up to cover legal fees and noted that anything left over or won back would go to a women's refuge. So there's a lack of consistency there on GoFundMe pages, but what about on the important issue of discrimination against homosexuals? FitzSimons has been prolific and pugnacious about Folau, penning about a dozen pieces condemning him. And one consistently worthwhile argument has been a focus on how the promulgation of views against homosexuality might be harmful to young gays who look up to Folau. But there seems to be a bit of a consistency gap when it comes to Indigenous Muslim boxer Anthony Mundine. This is a bloke Fitzy has publicly praised as a very fine and admirable man. Mundine has shared some particularly abhorrent views on homosexuality.
I was brought up for it to be forbidden anyway, the way I was brought up. I believe it's a choice. Everything's a choice. If I was in society, right, if we were living in a society, just like in the Aboriginal culture, so same thing, that homosexuality is forbidden and you do it and the consequences are capital punishment, death, you think you're going to do it? Or think twice of doing it? Hell no, I won't pick another guy, even if I was born like that. I mean, that's the only way to deter the problem. They're not going to be happy until you have primary school kids being gay.
There is a Muslim man, a Muslim Australian, advocating for corporate punishment or even death for homosexuality. Mind you, the progressive love Muslims. Work that one out. I have no... Yeah, moving along.
Capital punishment as a deterrent for gays? Seriously?
Not just capital punishment, death even.
Seriously? This goes far beyond Folau's old-fashioned religious beliefs. It begs the question, how many columns or comments have we seen from Peter FitzSimons condemning Mundine and his vile intercession? We couldn't find one. In fact, earlier this year, FitzSimons used Mundine to increase the heat on Folau. The Folau thing, he said, it was put very well by someone on Twitter on Wednesday, posting something along the lines of this. Anthony Mundine, I've just single-handedly offended every thinking Australian by posting a brain-dead tweet encouraging people not to vaccinate their kids. No one will ever outdo me. Israel Folau, hold my beer. To be fair, there was this tweet from last year where FitzSimons responded in the debate about the Folau fallout by noting that Anthony Mundine expressed similar antediluvian views a few weeks back, presumably based on the Quran, and equally caught, dare I say, hell. Yes, Peter, but did he catch a column from you? Did he catch a dressing down or a dissection from you? Did you hound Mundine from his job, from a contract, or from his career? Did you mock...
Did Mundine lose his job? No, he didn't. It's funny how there's one group of people that are protected and another group that seemingly get the shafty stick.
Mundine's religion and his fellow adherents. We couldn't find an example of FitzSimons doing that. Perhaps we should start a GoFundMe page for a detailed search.
So there's that article too, or that video as well. Look, at the end of the day, what's my view on this? Look, I don't agree with what Izzy Folau or Israel Folau has said. Okay? But at the end of the day, I will defend his right to say it. And at the end of the day, I don't really care what he says. I think he should have the right to say it. As for the GoFundMe, I hope the ACL does a good job. I really do. But look, at the end of the day, maybe we need another GoFundMe-like page starting up where we can go through and we can support programs like this. Maybe that's, maybe something that someone should do. Not saying who, but you know who. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, look, maybe that's an option. But here's the thing. Do we need to go through and to start developing all these different platforms just because of the fact that the social justice warriors have infiltrated and infected every other platform already? where do you stop? You know, like censorship on YouTube, Twitter. You know, Twitter we got Gab, Facebook we got Minds. Fine. Jordan Peterson's talking about starting up something for Patreon. I'd love to see that when it happens because I don't think it's going to be any better. But regardless, look, at the end of the day, do we need to go through and make our own platforms for everything? Maybe make it so that at the end of the day, you have freedom of speech as long as you're not inciting violence. Directly threatening someone. I don't know. Guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I know this is not a typical world news story, but it is an interesting one that we are talking about here in Australia. And I figured some of the Americans and the rest of the world might be interested in it. I will put a link in the description below to Israel Folau's post, to the ACL's GoFundMe. So you obviously, if you feel like donating, please obviously do that. But as for ACL and Israel Folau, knock them out. I hope you guys do a good job. And I hope you guys knock it out of the park. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Apart from that, guys, we'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great night and enjoy.